Hi class! Today we're going to be discussing and learning about clouds. So we will learn how clouds form through the process of evaporation, condensation, and how temperature and air play a role. So have you ever looked outside and seen really fluffy clouds like this one pictured here, or wispy clouds, or almost like a blanket of clouds? What do you think about those? Do you think that they're solid, or do you think that you could throw a rock through them? How much do you think they weigh? Well, I'll tell you that clouds are not solid. They are thin, allowing birds and airplanes to travel through them, and they actually weigh over 1 trillion pounds, depending on the size of the cloud. And so that is something interesting. So we are going to learn how clouds form today. So a main factor in how clouds form is through evaporation. So the water heats up and turns into invisible water vapor. This happens because the sun heats up water sources or lakes, rivers, and oceans, and it turns water into water vapor, which is a gas, and it rises into the sky because hot air or heat rises. And another key factor into cloud formation is condensation. So this is when the water vapor that we just talked about cools down in the air, because when it gets to a certain point of height, the air is cooler than what it is down here on Earth. So the water droplets stick together and they make up clouds. Cooler air can't hold as much water vapor, so that's why it sticks together. So this picture here shows what water droplets that stick together look like. So I want you to put on your thinking caps and think back to a time when your parents or your grandparents or anyone you know cooked something on the stove, like in a hot pot or pan. Have you seen the steam from the pot creating condensation? Like this picture right here, the condensation formed on the lid that they put on the pan here. If you don't put a lid on the pot or pan, the vapor will just rise all the way up and condensation will form on whatever is above the stove. So I want you to think even further, and then we'll discuss other times we have seen this process happen. So this is what immediately came to my mind. Every day I see this. So when I take a shower, the hot water from my shower becomes steam or water vapor, and condensation forms on my bathroom window or the mirror in my bathroom. So the tiny water droplets group together to form clouds, and when they get too full, the water droplets fall back into the ground as rain, snow, or hail. So if you think to the lid on your hot pan on the stove or your bathroom mirror, when they become too full of water or there's too much water on them, you'll actually see the water droplets start to fall down. And this is the same concept, just on a much bigger scale, when we look at clouds. So when the cloud gets too many water droplets, the water will fall back down to the ground as precipitation. So precipitation means how the water comes down. So rain, snow, hail, and that all just depends on the temperature and the airflow. So we can see here that it's just a continuous cycle. So this is kind of a more complex water cycle diagram, and we will learn more about percolation and transpiration later in our unit. But if we look right here down at this lake, well, this is a river, a water source here, the sun creates evaporation, and the water is carried up here to clouds. So we have these clouds here that are not very big, so they don't have much water, and then they get more condensation, and they condense into these big water-filled clouds right here that we can see. And then finally, they can't hold any more water. So precipitation happens, and you can see in this picture rain. So the rain goes back down, and it waters the grass and the trees, and it goes back down into the river, which is the original water source. So that's how it is a continuous cycle, and that's how our water is cycled. So something to think about is that we reuse the same water over and over and over. And actually we actually drink water that the dinosaurs drank out of due to this cycle happening. So, just to summarize and recap, clouds are made of tiny drops of water created when warm air cools and warm vapor condenses. So, what we're going to do today for our assignment is I would like you to create a diagram that looks similar to this. You can pick a different water source, different vegetation, like different grass or trees or bushes or flowers. And I would like you to pick whichever type of precipitation you want to show. So you could have snow or hail or sleet. And I want you to label each step. And this should be done using a blank piece of paper and whatever you want for color. Colored pencils, crayons, markers. And then we will submit them online when you are done. And yeah, that's how cloud forms.